Welcome to biology. In this video, we are going to continue our cell unit and talk a little bit about feedback systems. Now again, there are many different forms and many different shapes to cells, but that's important because the shape of the cell determines what that cell can do. So you're going to hear this phrase throughout the entire unit. The structure or the form determines the function or what that cell can do. So feedback systems help our body to maintain homeostasis. Now, in order to maintain homeostasis, our body needs to be able to respond to the environment around us and maintain this constant steady state within. So homeostasis is this internal balance or dynamic equilibrium. This is how your body is able to maintain a constant temperature. This is how your body is able to prevent itself from dehydrating. This is how your body is able to maintain a relatively constant blood sugar level. So feedback systems help to regulate the homeostasis within your body. So how do we do this? Again, it is feedback loops or feedback systems. But there's two types. We have negative feedback and we have positive feedback. And those two systems work a little differently. So negative feedback, I like to think of this as change leads to less change. This is what helps to maintain homeostasis within your body. So if your body is ever experiencing some kind of input that's driving you a little bit away from where the normal condition would be, a negative feedback loop causes you to circle back and return back to your normal state. Positive feedback loops, on the other hand, I like to think of these as change leads to more change, or we're amplifying or increasing the impact of that initial stimulus. So positive feedback loops help to drive a process to completion. Feedback systems follow this general system rule, and we'll get into this in just a moment. Within a negative feedback system, the initial response is reduced. So this inhibits or prevents that initial stimulus from making things go crazy. So it results in the organism returning back to normal. So an example of this would be body temperature regulation. So if the body temperature gets too far away from normal, a negative feedback loop will reduce that initial stimulus and return your body back to normal. So let's look at this general system over here. So our stimulus would be, say that the body temperature is too hot and we're above 37 degrees centigrade. So that would be normal body temperature. So you're too hot. So what happens is your nerve cells in your skin and in your brain sense that your body is too hot, and that sends a signal to the control. Now the control would be the regulatory center of your brain. That's where the decision's made of what to do about sensing that we're too warm. So your control makes the decision to send a signal to the effector, which would be the sweat glands throughout your body. And the effector is what actually makes that change to reduce the impact of that initial stimulus. So you see that it's this little bit of a loop. So let's look at it here in more detail. We have on the left-hand side of the screen is when your body temperature gets to be too hot. It sends a signal to the receptors, which sends a signal to the control center, which sends the signal to the effector. And when you're too warm, all of a sudden you're going to notice that the blood flow starts to be increased near the surface of your skin, so trying to allow that heat to dissipate out. Your body's also going to start sweating, which as that water evaporates off your skin, or the sweat evaporates off your skin, that pulls a lot of heat away from your body, and that will help bring your body back down to normal. Once the stimulus is no longer getting the signal that you are too hot, it's going to stop sending that loop and it's going to stop sending that signal, and your body will stop sweating. The opposite, if your body is way too cold, you're going to have a signal sent to the receptors, then sent to the brain and the control, sent to the effectors, and the effectors are going to decrease the amount of blood supply, and you're going to start shivering, and from shivering, you are actually going to raise your body temperature back where you need to be. So again, with negative feedback, change leads to less change. We're returning back to our normal. Here's another example that I think is going to be a little bit out of the box for some of you guys. So say you ate a sugar-coated cupcake or muffin. That's going to cause your blood glucose levels to increase, which tells your beta cells in your pancreas to release insulin into the blood. And that insulin is brought to your liver, and your liver takes up that glucose and stores it as glycogen. Now that glycogen is just stored waiting for a rainy day, and as a result, your blood sugar is going to decrease because there's no longer as much sugar from that sugar-coated cupcake floating around in your bloodstream. Now, say it's been a long time since you last had a meal, so your blood glucose level's starting to fall. Now, the alpha cells in the pancreas are going to release that stored glucagon, and that glucagon is going to go to the liver, and that liver is going to break it down and release glucose. So it's going to release sugar into your blood to bring your blood sugar back up to normal. So your body's trying to stay at homeostasis. And this is what happens if you have a normally functioning pancreas and liver. Your blood sugar is going to be regulated through these two negative feedback loops. Positive feedback is the opposite. This amplifies a stimulus to cause a greater response. And an example of this would be childbirth. So what happens in childbirth, and I hope this is a long way away for you guys, is within childbirth, the body notices that, all right, the baby's been growing for plenty of time, it's all cooked up, it's ready to be birthed and out into the world. So what happens is the body gets that signal saying, all right, time to start labor, time to get this baby out, and it starts doing contractions. And so after a contraction, the body gets the sense and says, wait, nope, the baby's still here. So it does another contraction, and it does another one, and it keeps sending the signal back and forth, and those contractions get closer together and they get stronger until that signal of, hey, there's still a baby in here, ends, and that body can then return back to homeostasis and no longer do those birth contractions. So in summary, you need to know the difference between negative feedback and positive feedback. Remember, negative feedback inhibits or reduces the initial stimulus, and positive feedback amplifies or increases that stimulus to produce a greater response.